What's up, everybody? Weekend is here. Satan's rule over us is up. Good to know. I was kind of fearful about how my weekend was going to go, but now that I know Satan isn't going to rule over me, I can have a good trip as I head out of state. How a college football star's belief that he was drugged by roommates saw him spiral into paranoia, feel suicidal, and become devout Nation of Islam follower. Before doing what he did, we call it a driving insurrection at the Capitol. Is that what we'd call it? Knife attack. This is obviously in reference to what happened earlier in the day on Friday. Again, it's a vehicle insurrection, we'll call it, or a knife insurrection. Mostly peaceful knife. We'll call it that. Noah Green, 25, drove his car into a barricade at the Capitol on Friday. I'm sure most of you are aware of that by now. Capitol Police Officer Billy Evans died as Green leapt out with a knife. Condolences, obviously, to him, his family, and loved ones. We don't want to see this happening. Just like with the January 6th incident and everything that happened with that. Green was shot at the scene and died from his injuries. Green was a promising college football star until a 2019 episode changed him. He believed his teammates and roommates drugged him with Xanax. They did not believe his allegations, but he began having hallucinations. Green tried to move to Indianapolis, but felt his apartment was being bugged. He went to Botswana, but feeling suicidal. Threw himself into the path of a car. Green returned to the U.S. and 2 weeks ago moved in with brother Brendan. On the eve of his attack, Brendan said Noah was violently ill and left. Unfortunately, in this case, first and foremost, it sounds like this gentleman has a lot of issues. Not a doctor, obviously. I don't know what kind of medical diagnosis could cause these feelings of hallucination and paranoia. Would it be kind of a schizo? Would that be what it is? Some kind of personality disorder? Again, just theorizing. Unfortunate, I guess, in hindsight, obviously, that he wasn't able to get help. And unfortunate that all of it led to what happened to Mr. Evans at the Capitol on Friday. Just to recap, on Friday he rammed his car into a barricade at the U.S. Capitol and leapt out with a knife, killing one of the officers. And that was Billy Evans, which I mentioned earlier. He was shot and killed by police. I'm not going to do too much of a deep dive on this, but I wanted to talk about some different aspects that I haven't heard other people talking about. Obviously, I've heard about the ties to the Nation of Islam, how he got in deep with that, and how he had some kind of anti-government rhetoric, saying that he thought police or the government itself was the biggest hindrance or the biggest problem that black people faced here in the United States. I hear people talk a lot about how the Nation of Islam is a black supremacist organization. Haven't delved into what they're all about, but I do hear a lot of individuals who have, I should say some individuals who have ties to the nation. They tend to espouse a lot of anti-Semitic beliefs. Whether that's a black supremacist thing, again, I don't know, because I just haven't looked into them enough as an organization to know what they're about. Something tells me, though, if I tried to reach out, they wouldn't want me within their ranks. Says he was born in West Virginia, a poor, largely white rural community of 1,700 people in the southeast of the state, close to the border with Virginia. It says he was a 2019 graduate of Christopher Newport University with a degree in finance. Mr. Green played on the Christopher Newport University football team in the fall 2017 and 2018 seasons, said Jim Hanchett, CNU Chief Communications Officer. Green was not known to police in Washington, D.C., but he did have a record in another state, according to law enforcement sources. His Facebook posts, which have since been taken down, showed a deeply disturbed man spiraling out of control, believing he was the victim of federal mind control, having suicidal thoughts and manic episodes, traveling to Africa, they mentioned Botswana, to seek solace, and finding comfort in religion and extremist ideology. Satan's rule over us is up, he said in a Facebook post on March 17th. Interesting how Facebook and the like chooses to, and I'm not going to be one of those that's out there saying they're supposed to be policing everybody, but it's interesting that they do choose to police a lot of individuals for things they say, but they don't look at this. And I'm not saying to police this, but as I always talk about in videos where there's individuals like this, we always see the breadcrumbs after the fact. You would think that their algorithm, as refined as it is, would be able to detect individuals like this. Not sure I want Zuckerberg and people like him out there making referrals to therapists, but if there is all of this information out there that we come across after the fact, you would have hoped that something could have been done, or somebody in his life, more importantly, would have noticed this and said, hey, do you need some help? What's up, brother? What's going on? He credited the controversial leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, with saving him after the terrible afflictions I have suffered, presumably by the CIA and FBI, government agencies of the United States of America. On Instagram, he wrote, I have suffered multiple home break-ins, food poisonings, assaults, unauthorized operations in the hospital, mind control. So you see, it's kind of going off the deep end a bit. Green believed that his troubles began in 2019 when he thought a former teammate and roommate drugged him with Xanax. Those involved thought that Green had made the story up and doubted his allegations. Green said the episode left him addicted to the drug and left him with lasting mental health problems, which grew increasingly severe. I don't know about Xanax. Never did it. I swear. Never had any reason to, but if he was addicted, then perhaps that does explain a lot. Again, I don't know much about the drug and its side effects. The night before the attack, he was violently ill. His brother Brendan told the Washington Post, without detailing exactly what happened. The pair shared an apartment in Virginia, Green having moved in 2 weeks ago, with his family deeply worried about his mental state. He texted Brendan on Thursday night and said, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to go and live and be homeless. Thank you for everything that you've done. I looked up to you when I was a kid. You inspired me a lot. He remained in the college town of Newport News on graduating, but the Xanax episode from 2019 haunted him. He had hallucinations, heart palpitations, headaches, and suicidal thoughts, Brendan told the Washington Post. If it wasn't teammates who gave him this drug, as he seemed to be claiming, perhaps he just took it to begin with himself. Again, it's just speculation, but maybe that's just a cover story, or maybe the deep speculation here, maybe the drug use became so bad, the drug had such an effect on him that that's the story he wanted to tell. That he really voluntarily took this stuff, but with so much of it being taken over a 1-2 year period, that he got to that stage where that's what he believed. In his mind, that was how he rationalized his drug use. Not my fault, right? Not my responsibility. By January of this year, Green had suddenly abandoned his Newport News home and moved to Indianapolis, saying drugs had inspired him to go there. From Indianapolis, he began to tell Brendan, again that's his brother, that people were breaking into his apartment. In January, he applied to legally change his name to Noah Zahim Muhammad. The hearing was due earlier this week on March 30th. He never showed up, and the case was dismissed. It's just interesting how these things come out, about how the narrative is written. But again, there could be a lot of legitimacy to these things. A lot of these stories we hear where the coverage is different based on your identity group, I think this is where you have this huge problem of believability in people. Because we get lied to so often that if we ever get something that is legitimate, we're sitting here like, okay, well, what about the last one and the last one and the last one? Why did you spin the story so differently? Why is this time different? Identity being what it is. It'd be great and granted, this is just one outlet, but it'd be great to have consistency in coverage and consistency in the way people are presented or the facts are presented to us so that we can make our own decisions. But as I said, when there's problems, if these things are legitimate, then people are going to obviously go back to their experiences and say, hey, wait a minute. Last time something like this happened, or something similar, relatively, you surely covered it differently. Why is this time different? Why should I believe you this time? Why not last time? Why are you doing what you're doing? So that's how I can see kind of the situation where you have this deep divide on how people are taking in this information. Skepticism on one side, and then on the other side, like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. This must be true. Well, in Africa, he told Brendan that his mind was telling him to basically commit suicide. He told his brother he had jumped in front of a car and was so badly injured. He had surgery in a hospital, which left him with scars and bruises, Brendan saw. Around 2 weeks ago, Noah called Brendan crying, telling him he was in a really bad situation and in really bad shape. He asked to move in with Brendan, and Brendan agreed. On March 17th, he posted an update to his friends and family on Facebook, telling them that he had been struggling and haven't had much to lean on the past few months. He said he was on a spiritual journey after having a tough past few years and recently losing his job. So again, there's something else, right? Another stressor event, a break. Obviously, it seems like he felt like he had a lot of stressors in his life already, and perhaps he did, but this was just one other thing, an exacerbation, I guess, if you will, losing his job. To be honest, these past few years have been tough, and these past few months have been tougher, he said. I've been tried with some of the biggest, unimaginable tests in my life. I am currently now unemployed after I left my job partly due to afflictions, but ultimately in search of a spiritual journey. Green said that religion had saved him. He described Farrakhan as Jesus, the Messiah, and the raiser of the dead to life, making the blind see and the deaf hear. He continued, I consider him my spiritual father. Without his guidance, his word, and his teachings that I've picked up along the way, I would have been unable to continue. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. As I said, this one's pretty long. I just wanted to show you a little bit about some of the different ways things are covered. I'm sure you get it. What's this? Nation of Islam Certificate of Completion. So they mail you certificates of completion. Interesting. So we are spinning mental health story. I'm sure these new verified dem bots will be all over social media spreading the lies. Nation of Islam. Better background checks to purchase knives. Anyone know what I'm getting at? It seems the US is taking a nosedive quite quickly now. The world, really. The media is trying to bury this and make excuses for him for no other reason than he wasn't a Trump supporter as they had hoped. It's going to become the real story. Don't do drugs, kids. Perhaps Barry could have a word with his friend Lewis to call off his followers before this escalates. Sounds like he developed schizophrenia. And that's what I was thinking. Again, just barely knowing anything about it. Just another Dumbo. They're everywhere. It's probably a little more involved than that. This one is really deep and nuanced. There's a lot going on. And obviously in any cases, the case in Boulder, Atlanta, all of the other cases we see, there's a lot more to it than what the media reports. So that's why I didn't want to do a deep dive. There's just way too much to get into. So look into some of this on your own. Do some more reading. See what other sources are out there and see what they have to say. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hopefully you have a good weekend. Be well.